Before we start, let's take a look at what you'll need to follow this course, starting with who this course is for. This is a beginner's course. You need absolutely no experience of PHP or of programming, but don't let that put you off if you've already dabbled with code. I intend to keep the theory short and focus on getting things done. However, you should have a good knowledge of HTML. Although I won't be using a lot of HTML in the early part of the course, PHP is most commonly used to generate web pages. If you try to mix PHP and HTML without really understanding the HTML, you'll end up with a mess. A knowledge of JavaScript is useful, but it's not essential. PHP and JavaScript are very different, but they both use variables, functions, loops, and conditions, so understanding those concepts will speed up the learning process. This is a hands-on course, so you'll need a PHP-enabled web server. Your remote server, the one that hosts your website, will need to support PHP, and you could use it for testing and development, but it's not a good idea. It's much better to set up a local testing environment. If you're impatient to get started, you might wonder why I'm telling you to spend time setting up a local server. First of all, it's much quicker. You don't need to keep uploading your files every time you make a change. In the early days, you're likely to make mistakes, so working locally avoids exposing your mistakes in public. Even when you become more experienced, you'll appreciate being able to develop offline in your local testing environment. David Gassner's course, Installing Apache, MySQL and PHP, here on lynda.com, will guide you through the setup process. There are several all-in-one packages that handle everything automatically. What's more, they're free. The other essential requirement is a script editor. PHP is written in plain text like HTML and CSS, so any text editor will do. However, you'll find writing PHP scripts much easier if the editor has the following features: a PHP syntax checker to make it easy to spot mistakes in your code, syntax coloring to highlight the different parts of the language. This also helps identify mistakes. Code hints to remind you of how to use built-in and custom functions, line numbering, and a feature to identify matching opening and closing braces, brackets, and parentheses. During this course, I'll be using a commercial program called PHP Storm 9, but it doesn't matter what you use. If you need advice on choosing a PHP editor, check out Joe Lowry's course here on lynda.com. He looks at a wide range of options, including free editors that are suitable for writing PHP scripts. It doesn't matter which operating system you're using. PHP is completely platform neutral. Most PHP websites run on Linux servers, but PHP runs equally well on Mac OS X and Windows. I recorded this course on a Mac, but I've also tested the code on Windows and Linux. It runs exactly the same in each operating system. A quick word about PHP versions. This course is based on PHP 7.0, but it's not an exclusively PHP 7 course. The great thing about PHP 7 is that with very few exceptions, it's backwards compatible with older versions. PHP 6 was never released publicly, so many websites are likely to continue running on PHP 5, possibly for several years. My recommendation is that PHP 5.5 should be the minimum version you should be running. Official support for PHP 5.4 ended in September 2015. Having said that, the overwhelming majority of the code in this course will run on PHP 5.4. I'll always make it clear where a later version of PHP is required, and I'll offer a workaround for PHP 5.4. There's just one final requirement for this course: patience. Like all programming languages, PHP is intolerant of mistakes, and you're bound to make them while learning. It can be frustrating when you don't understand why your code doesn't work, but I'll try to point out common pitfalls to help you troubleshoot problems. And take heart from this: even experienced programmers make mistakes. The only difference is that the experienced programmer can usually spot the error more quickly, and with patience, you'll learn to do the same. If you're a member of the lynda.com online training library, you have access to the exercise files for this course. Download them from the course page and save them in a convenient place on your local computer. I've got them here on my desktop, so let's just take a look at them. All the exercise files are organized in folders numbered after each chapter, and inside are subfolders for the individual videos that require exercise files. When a file is in a different state at the end of the video, _end is appended to the file name. If the video starts with a blank file, only the version with _end is provided. And in some cases, let's just take a look at chapter 9, where a lot of files change during the course of the video. There are two separate folders, begin and end. This is what the files look like at the beginning of the video, and this is what you should end up with at the end. PHP files need to be processed by a web server, so you need to copy all of the exercise files to your testing server root. The location of your server or document root depends on your testing environment. In MAMP on Mac OS X, it's at Applications, MAMP, htdocs. If you're using the built-in version of Apache on Mac OS X, it's at Library, Web Server, Documents. In WAMP Server, it's on your C drive at WAMP www. And in XAMPP on Windows, it's on your C drive at XAMPP htdocs. If you're using your remote server for testing, or when you eventually want to show off your new skills, the name of the document root can vary. On many sites, it's htdocs. Public_HTML is also common, as is www. To use the exercise files, copy the exercise files folder and all its contents to your server document root folder. Rename the folder to Introducing PHP as one word and all in lowercase. File and folder names in a website become part of the URL, so they should never contain spaces. It's also a good idea to use all lowercase because most PHP servers are case sensitive. If you set up the exercise files like this in a local testing environment, the URL for every file will be http://localhost/introducingphp/ followed by the folder names and file name. After you've copied the files and renamed the folder, make sure that your testing server is running and type the following URL in a browser address bar: http://localhost/introducing/introduction/test.php. And if everything is working correctly, you should see the following message. This day of the week here is generated dynamically by PHP, so it will differ depending on when you test this page. If the day of the week is out by 1, it means you need to fix the time zone on your server. We'll deal with that later in the course. And if this page is working, you're ready to continue with the course. If you couldn't display the test page, check the following. Is the web server in your testing environment running? In most cases, this will be Apache. Can you view other PHP files on localhost? If you can't, you need to fix your installation of Apache and PHP first. But if you can view other PHP files, did you copy the exercises files folder to the server root? Did you rename the folder to Introducing PHP as all one word? And did you spell the URL correctly? Mistakes and file and folder names are a common cause of problems. Hopefully, that checklist will get you up and running. Let's take a look at what's new in this course. It's been completely revised since the original version was incorporated into the lynda.com online training library. The original version was based on PHP 5.3, which is no longer officially supported. PHP 7, a major new version of PHP, was released at the end of 2015, so the course has been updated to take PHP 7 into account. But all of the techniques in this course are backwards compatible with PHP 5.4, which at the time of this recording was still being used on nearly a third of all PHP servers. Although some code will work only in PHP 7, I always show you an alternative for older versions of PHP. This version of the course no longer covers installing Apache, PHP and MySQL, because David Gastner's course of the same name goes into that subject in far greater depth and is constantly kept up to date. However, the basic structure of this course remains unchanged, so you can easily pick up this version if you are halfway through the original one. In addition to bringing the course up to date with PHP 7, I've made some improvements. I've removed the discussion of magic quotes because they're no longer part of PHP. I've also used the simpler array syntax that was introduced in PHP 5.4. In response to feedback from members, I've clarified the explanation of several features, such as the increment operator. There's also a whole new chapter on interpreting PHP error messages. But perhaps the biggest change is the introduction of challenges and solutions. Most chapters now end with a short practical exercise that challenges you to think how to use the techniques in the previous videos to solve a problem. The idea is to get you to start thinking like a programmer rather than simply copying and pasting code. Most challenges take only a few minutes. Then I show you how I solve the problem. Well, I hope I've whetted your appetite and you're now ready to dive into PHP.